Welcome to the last 2 weeks of season 2 of Dark Sabre. And I wanted to make a video. One, I'm switching platform devices. So I'll be using StreamYard moving into season 3 and everything else in the future. It's just a much better platform. It's easier to edit and it saves me a lot of time since I do this entire thing mostly solo. So this is just kind of a test run. And in the future, hopefully that guests that want to do video podcasts, we can get them on here as well, upload them on YouTube. So changing the format, we had a sponsor reach out and make us hats, which is pretty cool. But anyway, what I really want to emphasize is the importance of the last 2 weeks of Dark Sabre. Even if you've never listened to season 1 and you'd even listen to season 2, even when I talked about one of my current classmates who is the CEO of Dragos in this anti-Semitic male sexual assault actions in season 2, and that didn't pique your interest enough. These last few episodes where we interview a member of Permanent Party and we interview cadets who are recent grads or are current cadets at the academy now. And I saved these interviews for the end of the season for a very specific reason. And that reason is shock and awe. Okay. I know the Secretary of the Air Force listens to these, and I know some of his staffers do. I found this out when I went to DC myself in my dress blues and started knocking on congressional doors with my lobbyist group, trying to initiate the Dorito Act for the NDAA for the upcoming year. Is that still a long way off? Yeah, absolutely. Legislation's difficult and it's very complicated for anyone who's been involved in the process. Even things like the Cadet Act, which my former classmate was also involved in for years to get that passed. But it's consistency that counts. Now, most people continue to say, oh, screw this Dorito guy. And, he's not really a real grad from 2010 and everything else. But with all due respect, I'm probably one of the few people from the Air Force Academy who have spent going on the last 14 years of my life trying to change the Air Force Academy for the better, trying to institute real change. But the problem is the powers that be want to continuously stop it. Obviously, right now with the lawsuit that everything is going on, we're kind of in a dead cycle right now because one, presidential election, court appointments, and everything else. That has to be taken into consideration. And spending another $100,000 on an ineffectual executive branch that's not going to do anything when we had personal correspondence with them, and the current Secretary of Defense is currently sitting in a hospital. They have different priorities, right? So it's about timing and strategy. And that is why we are separating ourselves a little bit and focusing more on pushing out these stories. Now, the reason I push out these stories on the Dark Sabre podcast is very simple. They're far more traumatizing, in my opinion, than whatever happened to me. Whatever happened to me, yeah, that was terrible and that was bad. And that's what I've personally dealt with for over a decade now. But the thing is that these processes have only gotten worse. And the Air Force Academy has gotten significantly better at hiding it. Whether that's with their SAPR office, whether that's with the failed investigations with OSI, security forces, and cadets along within that process, we're not seeing justice. In fact, we're seeing an increase in reporting. And people say, oh, well, it's easier to see reporting now. I assure you these numbers are higher than they depict. They've always been this high. Even before the 2003 scandal where this stuff got revealed. I've even talked to the ladies of the 80s in the past. This has been going on ever since women were at the Air Force Academy, and it's unfortunate. And that also goes for West Point and Annapolis and Coast Guard. And this is one thing I want to emphasize. There's been a lot of traction about the hearings that some of these Coast Guard Academy graduates have gone to and voiced their opinions to members of Congress. And members of Congress, you're so shocked. You're so shocked that this is going on. Well, it isn't just going on at the Coast Guard Academy. It's going on at Annapolis. It's going on at West Point. It's going on at USAFA, Merchant Marine, all of them. Okay? And what I implore you to understand is stop listening to stories. Stop sympathizing with tweets. Take action. I'll be glad to meet with you and discuss these things moving forward in the future. I will be back in DC. I'm going to be going to a lot of political involvement activities this year. I'll leave it at that. And we're going to work together to do this. I don't care if this takes another 10 years of my life to do. It is the right thing to do. And that is what we learn at the Air Force Academy. Integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And even though I'm a member of the Army now, that doesn't mean that those core values that I learned at the Air Force Academy still don't apply. And I don't care how many people come after and attack me. I don't care about what people say about me. At the end of the day, I'm still serving our wonderful nation in uniform as an intelligence analyst and working on some high-end missions in the background. And if there were any of those things that people said about me were true, I wouldn't be doing this job. But I do this for free. I don't make any money off the podcast. I don't do anything. But what is devastating is hearing so many voices this past season of the horrible things that have gone on to them when it comes to rape, sexual assault, harassment, mistreatment, maltreatment by their commanders, and how no one's really doing anything about it still. It has to stop. And this is where I implore the listeners, which there's thousands of listeners from this season, and I want to thank every single one of you for sharing that story, but be vocal about it. If you're listening to these stories and you hear how bad they are, share them. Tell your congressman. Tell the parents groups of USAFA. The men and women, the young men and women that are going to our Air Force Academy are still getting raped and sexually assaulted continuously. And the systems that are put in place are mostly failing to do their job. Are there some success stories? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the fact that it's still going on and we're still allowing it to happen is absolutely unprecedented. And these are the people that are leading our military. And for those of you who are my age, mid-30s, going on in your 40s now, it's going to be a problem. It is definitely going to have an effect on readiness, medical readiness, and everything else moving forward. And there are real peer threat adversaries out there right now. And we need to be able to teach our young airmen, soldiers, Marines, sailors, and Coast Guardsmen that they can trust their leadership, that they can trust that the U.S. military is always going to do the right thing. But the only way we're going to do that is extreme accountability. And that's why I implore all of you to listen to the last 2 weeks of Dark Sabre. If this doesn't motivate you to call Secretary Kendall himself at the Pentagon, who is Secretary of the Air Force, and the Chief of Staff, General Brown, who is an Air Force Academy grad now, to start instituting these changes, I don't know what else will. What is it going to take? Another suicide? Another murder? More rape? More sexual assault? When is enough enough? I can't give that answer for you. For me, it was enough 14 years ago. But you don't want it to be your son. You don't want it to be your daughter next. I promise you. Some of these survivors are lucky enough and brave enough to come on this podcast and tell their story. And I know there's a lot more out there. Even some of my own classmates want to come on the podcast, but their fear of retaliation. What happened to me? And they're lieutenant colonels now, majors. And they don't want to come on here and show their face because they're so afraid of what might happen to them. That is not the standard that DOD should be allowing, that we should fear our own chain of command and fear the people that are supposed to be doing the right thing. So if you didn't listen to any other episode this season, please listen to the last 2 weeks, which will be this week, the one I just posted today, and next week, which is going to be a 2-part episode published on the same day because it's a 4-hour interview broken into 2 2-hour blocks. And do something. Make that phone call. Call Secretary Kendall. And Secretary Kendall out there, if you're watching this, you know how to contact me. We've had those conversations in the background with your staffers. Let's have a meeting. Let's sit down. Let's talk about how to fix our Air Force Academy. I will gladly fly out to D.C. whenever I can. We can sit down and discuss this. Not only can we resolve my issue immediately, but we can save our Air Force Academy and make it the amazing institution that it's always meant to be. Thank you for listening to Dark Sabre this season, and we'll see you in season 3.